Now, Newsline with Ken Schram.
And I thank you for joining me here on this Tuesday afternoon Newsline PM. Appreciate it a lot. So there's some practice fields up in Everett, particularly one at Cascade High School that is, let's put it this way, a little bit in disrepair. Apparently some of the football players there say that the potholes that are on the field, one kid said that there's more injuries caused during practice than there are injuries during the game because of the condition of this particular field. And the school district's athletic director, not necessarily in alignment with that. He says, some of the problems on the field right now are somebody who was driving through it during the last snowstorm. What a dipstick that guy must have been. But they're talking about putting some new artificial turf fields in if the district can get voters to pass a bond measure in 2 years. And 2 years, wait a minute. Now, as an aside, there's is money that has been put aside to put together a new administration building for the school district. It's going to spend a lot of money on offices there. I think it's over $20 million. I'll tell you what, let's go to Jessica Olson, Everett School Board member. She can help us with this. How you doing, Jessica?
Doing just fine, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate your being here. So tell me, what would be the cost? Do we know what the cost is if we were to put in these fields now?
It would be just about over $3 million. It's about $1.5 million per field, and that's the district's estimate.
Okay. And how much has been budgeted for the new offices, for the administration building?
Upwards of $26 million, depending on what you're counting.
So let's see here. New football fields or new administration building. Does it come down to that choice?
It absolutely does. No question about it.
So then why has the choice been made to ignore the football fields and put up the administration building?
I have opinions on that. I honestly can't answer for the other board members. I can only tell you what they've said during board meetings.
Okay. I'll settle for that.
Well, they've said at previous board meetings that we've been kicking the can down the road on an administration building, and that it is a terrible inconvenience to ask administrators who work in buildings that are, about a mile apart to take a 3-minute drive when they want to get together. Apparently, we can't video conference here in Everett if the drive is too much, and so we need this new building, and we also need to send the message to our administrators that we value them by giving them a modern place to work.
So, here's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking, wait a minute. School districts are really fighting for every dollar that they can get their hands on. I mean, schools have suffered financially for several years now. The legislature is still trying to grapple with a budget deficit that doesn't include more cuts to basic education. We have a state Supreme Court ruling that says we are not funding public education in a manner that is suitable for what the state's responsibility should be. And yet, when it comes down to a choice between a new administration building and a couple of football fields, that's the choices made.
Well, the thing is, both actually could be done if the administration was willing to pare down the design of their building, which they could easily do. That's not even a topic for consideration. I've tried to request that we talk about that, and those requests are ignored. The public has made multiple requests for that. Those requests have been ignored. You're right about the finances. As far as the state of education funding, it is on the decline, but Everett is in a unique situation where in 2006 they passed a bond in the amount of just under $200 million. And the purpose of the bond, as presented to the voters, was that capital improvements were necessary in order to better serve the needs of the students. And so what the school district did was they applied for state match funds on all the schools that they modernized or had new construction on, and they salted away the state match funds, which by law can only be used on facilities for students. The law specifically states state match funds cannot be used on a building for administrators. And since once they were put into our capital fund account and we received those monies, apparently there is a loophole that allows us to use that money on administration buildings. So we repurposed the bond in July. The vote was 4-1, and we basically didn't ask the voters whether or not we could spend it on a new administration building. The board essentially did it by fiat.
I have one word for your board member colleagues. Portables.
You are absolutely right. The current
Portables.
administration building on Colby has space for portables, and I do feel like if it's good enough for students, it's certainly good enough for the administrators.
Portables. I'm thinking portable. And I guess. So let me ask you this though: is the administration building itself, is it seismically safe? I mean, it's not a building that's on the cusp of being condemned and not habitable, correct?
That is absolutely correct. It would not be up to today's building codes. The one at Longfellow is not up to today's seismic building codes, but it is in no danger of being condemned. It's clearly habitable.
All right, so let's review for a moment here. So it would cost about $3 million to fix up the 2 practice football fields that we're talking about, and we're talking $26 million for the new administration building. So take that's $3 million. We'd still have $23 million left over. Do you mean to tell me that there's no better place within the educational structure of the Everett School District to spend $23 million than to throw it into an administration building?
You're asking the question that everyone that I know of has them scratching their heads. It's beyond logic and reason. I don't understand it. It'd be one thing if the administrators were in danger with their health and safety, but constructing a brand new building where 3 other administrative buildings are then going to be vacant, plus we already have vacant buildings in the district that are just sitting there. So I'm certainly in favor of giving them good facilities, but not at the expense of depriving students of facilities. And certainly unnecessary facilities. You know, sometimes schools are constructed just upon the basis that modernizing them, there's like a formula. You can construct a brand new school that costs the taxpayers a lot more money when really they could have just modernized the old school. So you really have to take a close look at that.
And these are funds that are not dedicated. Take me through that capital improvement thing again, where you say that the bond measure was passed in 2006?
That's correct.
And that was for $200 million?
It was for $198,900,000.
Okay,
so just under $200 million.
We'll round it off to 200 because I'm otherwise I'll get lost. Okay, so 200, and then there were state matching funds that went along with that levy approval.
Yeah, the district has sought over the years to obtain about $24 million in state match funds, and I'm not entirely sure how much that $24 million they have. I think it was quoted to the board that they had somewhere around $13 million in state match funds.
And so they've manipulated, and these were all capital expense monies.
That's correct.
So they can't be used for teachers or anything of that nature, but there's different choices when it comes to capital expenses.
That's correct. And the problem is there's a glitch in the law. Like the law for state match funds say that the match funds will not be awarded to a district that's going to build an administration building. I mean, that's a specific caveat in the state match law. However, once the monies have been received by the district and put into the capital fund, I checked on this. The OSPI says there is no law precluding a district from then turning around and spending the state match funds as they like. So whatever it does, because we have a tax base that is very generous, we have voters that are very generous, we simply front fund our projects, raise all the money that we need to build our buildings, and then we collect state match money on top of that and turn around and spend it how we want. That's in a nutshell.
Who's the head of your school board?
The head of our school board right now is President Jeffrey Russell.
President Jeff Russell. All right, Jessica Olson, also an Everett School Board member. I think we may hear that name sometime tomorrow. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the time and the update.
No problem, Tim. Thank you.
See, and that's what frustrates people. Choices like that just drive people nuts.
KOMO AAA traffic and weather every 10 minutes on the 4s.
A couple new things to